Hello, today we're going to talk about how to recover a Morpheus appliance when all of the administrator users are locked out and unable to access their accounts. To start out, Morpheus includes some fail-safes that if you do have access to your appliance, you can set up now to ensure a situation like this doesn't happen. We'll go over those before talking about the recovery steps. So if you do still have access to your appliance, you may want to consider putting a couple of these practices into place so that the situation doesn't happen to you. To start out, I'm in Administration, Settings, and then I'm underneath the Appliance tab. If we take a look down here, you can see that we have a customizable setting that disables a user after a certain number of consecutive failed login attempts. If we set this field to 0, user accounts will never be locked out. So you may want to consider disabling lockout if it's not needed in your organization according to your security policies. However, if this is required, then you'll want to just keep this at a level that meets your organizational security compliance. Secondly, we want to make sure that email settings are set up. Anytime an account gets locked out, we can always unlock it by going through the reset password function on the login page. Morpheus in prior times did include a default SMTP server pre-configured here, so it was just about impossible to get locked out. However, for the last several releases, for security reasons, that's no longer given. So it's now incumbent on the organization to input their own SMTP settings in here. And if you do have correct SMTP settings here, it should be impossible to get locked out of or just about impossible to get locked out of your appliance. However, these fail-safes may not apply if you're already currently locked out. So we'll also go ahead and discuss what to do to recover an appliance that is locked out. When an account is locked out, we won't see any UI warning or error messages surfaced. So if I attempt to log in now with an incorrect password, you'll see that I do have a UI warning surfaced here. But this is my final login attempt. So that was my last miss, and now my account is going to be locked out. If I try to log in again, you'll notice that there are no UI errors surfaced when the account is locked. It will send you an email that lets you know that the login attempt was unsuccessful because your account is locked out. But of course, if you don't have SMTP server settings configured, you're not going to be receiving those emails. Once again, if we are locked out and we do have an SMTP server configured, I can click Forgot Password and I can recover my locked account that way. So that's always going to be the easiest way. But at this point, my account is locked out. And if I was the last administrative account that wasn't locked out, now we could potentially be in a predicament where there are no available users who can log in and unlock all of the other administrator accounts. In order to recover an account from this point, we'll have to edit the Mysql database for the Morpheus appliance directly. Anytime that you do that, you want to take a backup immediately prior to directly querying the database. This is especially true if it's an important production appliance. Because if you do make a mistake and you do corrupt your database, you want to have a clean upgrade path. Again, especially if this is an important production appliance, you always want to take a backup first. So to access the password so we can get into the MySQL shell, I'm going to cat /etsy/morpheus/morpheus-secrets.json. Now, I'm not going to run this here because I'm not going to reveal my password, but if you do run that, you'll see a short JSON file, and you want to pull the Morpheus password from within the MySQL section, and you can use that to get into the shell. I happen to already have it on my pasteboard, so I'm going to do MySQL-u Morpheus-p -h 127.0.01 and Morpheus. Now it's going to ask me to enter the password. Again, mine's already on the pasteboard, and now it's returning that table information, which is what I want. This will take just a moment, and I'll go ahead and skip ahead to the point when we're into the shell. And it looks like we have just gotten into the shell now. So what I want to do now is I want to remove the lock from one of my users. When you first set up the appliance, there should be a system administrator account, user account that's created right at that point. And that's going to have that user object is going to have the database ID of 1. So I'm going to unlock my user object that has the ID of 1. If you happen to know the ID for another user that you want to unlock, you can substitute in your own ID here. But I'm just going to update user set account underscore locked equals 0, where ID equals 1 equals 1. Okay, so that change was made. And now for the account that I had locked, that account is now unlocked. So I would have an additional set of login attempts now. So if I have 5 attempts, say, before that account is locked, now I have another 5 attempts that I can use to guess at that password. So hopefully we would know the password within a certain number of attempts. Now, another situation you may run into is when you do unlock that account and then attempt to type in the password, especially if we're talking about the ID1 account, which maybe no one uses on a regular basis. You may run into an issue where the password is too old, and Morpheus may try to issue an email to you so that you can reset that password. But again, if we don't have the SMTP server established, that's not going to help us. So what we may need to do is update user set password set equals now, where ID equals 1. And again, that is going to refresh the password age back to 0 seconds. So essentially like right now. So it'll be as if you just set that password now, and then once again we've given ourselves a refreshed set of attempts to guess the password. Now this is great as long as we know what the password is, but as I said previously, this is only going to give you an additional set of guesses at the password, and you may still not know it. So this may not completely get you out of the woods. So what you'll have to do in that case is install a new test appliance and get all the way through to the point where you do set up the initial seed user, that user ID equals 1 that I mentioned previously. So if we do need to get in and this doesn't help us because we still don't know the password for any of those accounts, what we do is we would, maybe set up a new Linux box, install Morpheus on that box, and then get to the point where we add the additional seed user right when Morpheus has just completed install. And you want to make sure that you make note of that password somewhere so that we know the password for that new seed user. And then we want to access the password hash for that user. So at this point, we'll pretend that I've SSH'd into my newly installed Morpheus box. Again, I've already gotten to the point where I've set the password for the initial seed user. And I just want to access that password hash so that I can update my production database. So I'm going to select password from user where ID equals 1. And I'm going to copy this hash and somehow send it to myself so that it's accessible on my other box. And I will now clear the screen to simulate me going back to my original production box. And I want to update the password hash for my admin user that I wish to unlock. So what I'm going to do is update user set password equals, and then I'm going to paste in that hash that I just copied, where ID equals 1. And I'm going to get a success message that should I should have at this point now unlocked my password, or unlocked the user account, and then also reset the password to a value that I know. So I will now move back into Morpheus UI and do a couple of final cleanup tasks. So at this point, I was successful in unlocking my accounts, as you can see, because I was able to log in. Now what I may need to do, I may have a number of admin level accounts that are locked, and at which point I can just click the pencil icon next to each one. And what I can do then is I can set maybe a dummy password. So maybe if I set I can set a dummy password here, confirm it, and then what I would probably do as well is mark password expired. And that way, when the user first logs in with my dummy password, I'm forcing them to set a new password so that it's more secure, and I don't know what their password is. Additionally, I would want to go into settings and then go into the appliance section and scroll down to email settings, which is here. I won't show much more because I do have a live SMTP server configured there. But if you go into email settings, you'll want to complete the process of configuring an SMTP server. In that way, if accounts ever get locked out in the future, you can simply click the Forgot Password button on the login page, which is right here. And by resetting the password, you can unlock a locked account, and we don't have to go through the process of SSHing into the Morpheus Appliance box, directly editing the database, and or standing up test appliances just to recover accounts.